Across the quiet neighborhoods of America, something is shifting. Not loud enough to make headlines, not sudden enough to spark panic, but deep enough to change everything. The lawns are still trimmed, the driveways still hold cars, the grocery stores still hum with fluorescent light. But beneath that ordinary rhythm lies exhaustion. The middle class, once the country's backbone, is quietly running out of breath. It's not the kind of collapse you can see in a single day. It's a slow leak. It's the steady dimming of comfort, the quiet selling of homes that were once permanent, the invisible math that no longer adds up at the end of the month. There's no breaking news banner for this kind of decline. No single event marks its start. It's happening in silence, in the gaps between paychecks, in the empty savings accounts, in the subtle fear that the next unexpected bill might finally be the one that breaks everything. What's unfolding isn't dramatic enough to call a crisis, but too widespread to ignore. Families that once lived securely now juggle rising rents, medical debt, and car payments that feel heavier than ever. The promises that once defined the middle class, a home, a vacation, a safety net, retirement, are dissolving into illusions, sustained only by credit and denial. The streets still look the same, but something has gone missing from them. The confidence, the margin for error, the sense that tomorrow will be manageable. It's all fading, slowly, like an image being erased one pixel at a time. The change is subtle, but everywhere. More cars parked overnight in driveways because gas is too expensive to waste. More for sale signs lingering in yards that no one can afford to buy. More grocery carts filled with less food, more substitutions, more store brands. The decline doesn't announce itself with noise. It reveals itself through silence. The silence of a father sitting in the car, after work, before walking in. The silence of a mother pretending everything's fine, while the bills pile higher. The silence of millions who still go to work every day, still follow the rules, but sense that something fundamental has shifted against them. For decades, the middle class was the heartbeat of America, the proof that hard work could create stability. That illusion held strong through recessions, wars, and inflation spikes. But now, it's breaking in real time. Paychecks have stagnated, housing costs have exploded, and the gap between effort and reward grows wider each year. The dream has been downsized, repackaged, and sold back to people who can barely afford the entry fee. Everyone still talks about opportunity, but fewer and fewer can actually find it. The middle class isn't collapsing in one dramatic event. It's eroding. It's the slow grind of reality replacing optimism. It's the unspoken knowledge that the cost of everything has outpaced the value of labor. People aren't lazy or reckless. They're trapped. Trapped in a system that promises prosperity while quietly siphoning it away. From the outside, everything still looks normal. But behind the closed doors of suburban homes, behind the glowing screens and cheerful ads, there's an unease spreading, a quiet recognition that the world they were told to believe in is slipping out of reach. This is not a sudden disaster. It's not the fall of a building or the crash of a market. It's a slow-motion collapse that hides in plain sight. No protests, no smoke. Just a gradual unraveling of the foundation that once held millions steady. The middle class isn't vanishing overnight. It's fading, and almost no one is paying attention. The cracks began years ago, small enough to ignore. A few price hikes here, a few stagnant wages there. But over time, those cracks widened into fault lines that now stretch across every part of American life. Beneath the surface of ordinary routines, a quiet imbalance has taken hold, one that no policy speech or tax credit seems able to fix. The economy may look strong on paper, but the numbers hide a different truth. Millions of people working harder than ever, earning less than they need, surviving on borrowed time. The middle class isn't just struggling, it's being squeezed from both ends, caught between rising costs and shrinking security. At the grocery store, the evidence is subtle but constant. Shoppers pause longer at the shelves, comparing prices, scanning for discounts that no longer exist. The same basket of basics now costs twice as much as it did a few years ago, and yet paychecks have barely moved. Food inflation doesn't make noise, but it gnaws at people's sense of control. It's the quiet humiliation of realizing you can no longer afford what used to be normal. And beyond groceries, the same pattern repeats. Rent up, utilities up, healthcare premiums up. The basics of life now take more than life itself can offer. Families who once felt stable are discovering they are one minor emergency away from crisis. Behind every statistic about average debt or median income, there are stories of slow decline. The family that sold their second car. The couple who stopped going out altogether. The parent who skipped medication to pay the power bill. None of them make headlines, but collectively, they form the real picture of America's economic reality. A society quietly losing its middle. The data is only the echo of what's happening in real time. A gradual evaporation of comfort, replaced by constant trade-offs. Choices that used to feel temporary have become permanent. The small sacrifices are now survival strategies. Even education, once the ladder out of hardship, has become another trap. Student loans haunt people well into middle age, while degrees deliver less stability than ever before. Younger generations, burdened before they even begin, see the life their parents once lived as fantasy. They aren't lazy, they're priced out. The math doesn't work anymore, and everyone knows it. The middle class was built on the idea that if you followed the rules, you'd eventually win. But the rules have changed quietly, without permission. Corporations thrive while workers stagnate. Productivity rises while wages flatline. And all the while, people are told that the system is still fair, that success is still possible if they simply work harder. It's a lie so familiar that most no longer question it. They just keep pushing, hoping something will change, while the ground continues to shift beneath them. The cracks are now too wide to repair. They run through everything: work, home, health, hope. The middle class isn't falling apart from one big collapse. It's fracturing in silence, breaking piece by piece, under the weight of a system that no longer supports it. The great trade-off began quietly, disguised as adaptation. It wasn't a sudden decision, but a slow acceptance that survival now meant letting go of what once defined stability. Families started trading ownership for endurance. They sold homes and moved into rentals, not out of choice, but because mortgages became unreachable. They downsized their lives, convinced it was temporary, only to realize the downsizing never stopped. Vacations turned into staycations. Savings accounts turned into revolving credit card balances. And through it all, people told themselves it was fine, that this was just a phase, that the good times would return. But the good times didn't return. They were replaced with a new kind of normal, one built entirely on compromise. The trade-offs grew larger and more invisible. Parents traded time with their children for longer work hours, chasing income that barely matched the cost of living. Workers traded health for job security, staying silent through burnout and stress just to keep their insurance. The idea of making it shifted from prosperity to endurance. If you can pay your bills, you're doing well. The bar keeps lowering, quietly, year after year. And yet, people keep adjusting, because what else is there to do? The system doesn't collapse overnight. It reshapes people's expectations until they no longer remember what stability felt like. The American middle class once represented ownership of homes, cars, futures. But now, everything that was once owned is rented. Houses are rented from corporations, cars are leased, furniture is financed, and even technology comes on monthly subscriptions. It's a slow transformation from independence to dependency. The illusion of ownership remains, but the control is gone. The family that once built wealth through their home now signs another lease renewal with a rent increase. The couple that once dreamed of early retirement now prays the market doesn't crash before they can afford medicine. Each year, more people fall into this pattern, working more, owning less, owing more. The trade-offs extend beyond money. They reach into identity. People once defined themselves by their work ethic, their pride, their ability to provide. Now, that pride has been replaced by quiet exhaustion. It's no longer about progress. It's about maintenance. Keeping the lights on. Making it to next month. The American dream was never supposed to feel this fragile. Yet millions live this way, trading away freedom for the illusion of security, without realizing that both are slipping away. This is how decline hides in plain sight. Not through collapse, but through compliance. Through the normalization of struggle. Through the quiet acceptance that this is just how things are now. Every generation before believed that things would improve, that their children would have more. But for the first time, that belief is fading. The trade-offs have become the story itself. People are no longer striving for better. They're just trying not to lose what little they have left. The divide they don't want you to see isn't just about money. It's about worlds that no longer overlap. The same country now holds two entirely different realities existing side by side. On one side, wealth circulates endlessly. Real estate portfolios, private jets, digital assets, and quiet tax shelters. On the other, life is reduced to bills, late fees, and the fading comfort of things once considered basic. The rich have become invisible not because they've disappeared, but because their lives no longer intersect with the public they profit from. They live above the turbulence, insulated by a system built to serve them. Meanwhile, everyone else is left staring at a version of prosperity that feels increasingly unreachable. The numbers make the contrast undeniable. Corporate profits soar while wages barely move. Stock markets climb, but fewer Americans own any shares. Executives earn in an hour what an entire household makes in a month. And yet, the illusion of fairness remains carefully maintained. The news celebrates record job growth, but never mentions that most of those jobs no longer pay enough to live comfortably. The housing market is called strong, while millions can't afford a single down payment. The divide doesn't just widen, it's sanitized, hidden behind statistics that make suffering sound like progress. The narrative of equality is preserved through distraction. People are told to believe in hard work, while the ladder they're climbing has already been pulled up. The media highlights stories of individual success, the one person who made it out, the one business that thrived, while ignoring the millions silently falling behind. It's not a conspiracy, it's a structure, a system that rewards the few by keeping the many too busy, too tired, and too uncertain to question it. The divide isn't only economic, it's psychological. The rich have turned the middle class's struggle into background noise, normalized by repetition until it feels inevitable. Even geography tells the story. In the same city, a luxury tower rises while a row of apartments decays across the street. Gated communities bloom beside trailer parks. Private schools expand their campuses while public schools ration textbooks. The landscape itself is divided, clean, efficient, and manicured in one direction, aging, cracked, and neglected in the other. And as the distance between these realities grows, empathy disappears. The struggles of ordinary people no longer register as urgent. They register as data. The suffering becomes content, the outrage becomes brief, and life goes on, for those who can afford it. The powerful don't need to hide their advantage. They only need to make inequality look normal. They've succeeded. What was once unthinkable is now routine. CEOs take bonuses while laying off workers. Politicians trade promises for donations. Landlords raise rent faster than wages. And through it all, the middle class holds on, believing that with enough discipline or luck, they can still cross the divide, unaware that the bridge has already been burned. This is the new American divide, quiet, managed, and invisible to those at the top. It doesn't rely on chaos or revolution. It survives on distraction, on the illusion that everyone still has a chance. But most don't. The distance between rich and ordinary has grown too wide to measure in dollars. It's measured now in how differently they experience time, opportunity, and consequence. The middle class no longer looks up in admiration. It looks up in disbelief. The future that's already here doesn't look like the dystopias people were warned about. There are no riots in the streets, no visible ruins, no dramatic collapse. The buildings still stand, the lights still flicker, and people still go to work. But beneath that surface, the foundation has quietly shifted. What was once a middle-class nation has become something else entirely. A divided economy held together by illusion. The American dream still exists, but only as a slogan, recycled in advertisements and political speeches. In practice, it has become a mirage, close enough to see, too far to reach. The people who built this country's stability are now surviving in its shadow, maintaining a lifestyle that no longer belongs to them. This new version of America runs on debt and denial. It tells people they're free, while binding them to lifelong payments. It sells the idea of independence, while every necessity, housing, health care, education, is owned by someone else. The middle class has become the economic engine that powers the profits of those above it, trapped in a cycle that keeps them too busy to notice their own decline. Everything looks fine because the collapse was designed to be quiet. No explosions, no sudden crash, just a slow transfer of stability upward until nothing is left at the center. Technology has replaced opportunity. Automation replaces jobs, algorithms dictate visibility, and the same systems that promised efficiency now measure human worth in productivity metrics and credit scores. The middle class no longer works toward freedom. It works to stay relevant. Every advancement comes with a cost. Convenience traded for privacy. Speed traded for control. The tools that were supposed to liberate have instead become extensions of the system that confines. The collapse isn't physical, it's structural. It's a shift so complete that most people don't even recognize it as a collapse. The future doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in quietly. You can see it in the suburbs that feel emptier each year, where neighbors move away and no one moves in. In the downtowns that are polished on the surface but hollow inside. In the schools where children inherit anxiety before they learn optimism. The middle class that once fueled ambition is now teaching caution. Not how to get ahead, but how to hold on. Hope has become conditional, reserved for those who can afford it. And yet, despite all of it, the illusion continues. People still chase the next milestone, the home, the car, the degree, believing that if they just push harder, they can reclaim what's already gone. The truth is more unsettling. There's no going back. The era of stability has ended, not with collapse, but with quiet surrender. The middle class didn't fall. It was absorbed, divided, and replaced. What remains is a population still functioning, still consuming, still surviving, but hollowed out, stripped of the certainty that once defined American life. The silent collapse is complete. It doesn't need to announce itself because it's already here. The proof is in the exhaustion, in the constant calculation of survival, in the quiet fear that this is as good as it gets. America hasn't broken apart. It has simply faded into two realities, one that owns the future and one that rents it. The middle, once the anchor of balance, has dissolved into memory. The dream didn't die in flames. It died quietly, behind closed doors, in the silence between paychecks, and nobody was listening.